Here are some of the most privileged kids out there. Number 8. Voryuth Yovedhia. Voryuth Yovedhia is the grandson of Chelio Yovedhia, who co-founded the Red Bull empire with Austrian Dietrich Mateschitz. The heir of Red Bull first got into trouble back in 2012. What did he do? He hit a police officer in Bangkok in his Ferrari after he had a few drinks. Voryuth even dragged the cop with his Ferrari more than 300 feet before finally taking off. And he did it without even stopping to see if he was okay. What would happen to us if we did that in the US? While someone like you or me would undoubtedly face a few years in prison, he got off without even spending a single night in jail. Authorities discovered that the car had actually been driven by Voryuth, who was 27 at the time. They tracked the trail of brake fluid to his house. When they found him, he was tested and found to have alcohol above the legal limit in his system. But he said this was from drinking at home after the accident. He was officially charged, but never arrested. Yovedhia and his family are swimming in money. His dad, Kalerm Yovedhia, is worth an estimated $20.2 billion. They're easily one of the richest families in Thailand. It seems like all that cash can buy your way out of trouble in Thailand. Or at least postpone your trial until you can skip out of the country, which is exactly what happened. Yovedhia's wealthy family paid his bail and let him flee to London in their private jet, where he currently lives in the lap of luxury. To this day, Yovedhia has never paid for his crimes. In July of 2020, his charges were dropped on instructions from the Thai Attorney General, but the case could be reopened if new evidence was discovered. It's unclear why it happened, and police did say that wealth had nothing to do with it. But do you believe that? Number 7. Gao Lu. When you're a super rich Asian girl, you may get it in your head that you can take your G-Wagon anywhere you'd like, such as China's Forbidden City in Beijing. That's exactly what rich girl of China Gao Lu decided to do on a visit to the Forbidden City in January of 2020. When she took pictures of herself in her G-Wagon, she set off a massive debate on the internet as to whether or not China's wealthiest families have privileges that the middle and lower classes don't. Here's a spoiler alert. They totally do. The Palace Museum fired 2 of their officials after the scandal broke out, but Gao Lu didn't care. She wasn't sorry about her actions. She claimed that she'd only driven her car into one of China's most sacred sites because she was part of an exclusive event and there was nowhere else to park. So she decided to take some pictures while she had the chance to drive in a place where no one else could. Cars aren't allowed to drive in the Forbidden City, a place that's apparently held sacred by most Chinese citizens. Her story was collaborated by the Palace Museum staff, who said that they regretted allowing a small group of people to drive into the Forbidden City itself, but the internet still wasn't satisfied. They saw Gao Lu's behavior as a sign of a bigger problem, which is that China's elites play by different rules than ordinary citizens. Chinese social media exploded with outrage, so Gao Lu deleted all of her posts with her G-Wagon, but she gave her final opinion in an Instagram post set in Las Vegas, where she claimed that the Forbidden City controversy was just because people were jealous of her rich girl lifestyle. Number 6. Ethan Couch. Ethan Couch is the original poster boy for affluenza. He was that kid whose lawyers claimed affluenza as a defense after he drove under the influence and caused a crash that was fatal for several people. Ethan's parents gave him the keys to their second home when Ethan was a 16-year-old. Just so he could have parties on his own. That wasn't exactly responsible parenting. After one particular night that was filled with alcohol, Ethan decided to get behind the wheel that changed his life. After the accident, his wealthy parents hired an entire defense team to keep him out of prison. A psychologist hired by his defense team testified that Ethan was a product of affluenza. That was a term the psychologist used to describe Ethan's irresponsible lifestyle associated with his affluent upbringing. He claimed that Ethan's rich kid illness made him not understand the difference between right and wrong. Basically, the psychologist was blaming irresponsible parenting. That sort of parenting style had, quote, strongly enabled the accident. That's despite the fact that Couch had a blood alcohol level 3 times the legal limit on the night of the crash. According to Couch's lawyer, so-called victims of affluenza shouldn't be responsible for their actions. Amazingly, the affluenza defense actually worked. He got only 10 years of probation and sent to rehab for what he did. But Ethan couldn't even handle that minimal punishment. He decided to skip probation, dye his hair, and sneak across the border to Mexico. But he was caught and finally was sent to jail, where he only served 2 years for his crimes. Number 5. Peter Brandt Jr. Peter Brandt Jr. is the rich kid of ex-supermodel Stephanie Seymour and billionaire Peter Brandt. He's one example of how a supermodel mom and a billionaire dad can let a kid get away with a lot. Peter Jr.'s rap sheet shows just how much he's gotten away with. There are charges for assault and disorderly conduct, just as an example. Maybe not surprisingly, the entire family gets in on the childish shenanigans. Stephanie Seymour has repeatedly called the cops on her own son when they have gotten into fights. The craziest thing Peter Jr. has gotten away with was in March of 2016. He got way too drunk at JFK Airport and punched a Port Authority cop at Kennedy Airport right in the face. He was waiting in the JetBlue terminal to board a flight when he became disorderly after he was told he was too drunk to fly. That led to an altercation with a JetBlue staffer, and when the cop tried to calm him down, that's when he decided to punch the cop. He then ran out of the emergency exit, setting off alarms for the entire airport. While he technically got arrested, Brandt Jr. didn't have to serve any time for the assault. In fact, he was back to bragging about his lifestyle on Instagram just a few short days later. Peter Jr. ended up getting sentenced to 25 days of community service. Number 4. Harry Brandt. Pete Jr. isn't the only Brandt kid who makes terrible decisions. His little brother, Harry Brandt, is known for his privileged ways as well. Harry Brandt inherited his mom's love for fashion and glamour, as well as his older brother's philosophy that rules don't apply to them. Back in July of 2016, Harry decided that he didn't want to pay for a taxi. He skipped out on a roughly $28 fare when he ran out of the cab. Maybe he was just bad at negotiating, or he just didn't want to. He told the driver that he didn't have the cash on him to pay, but then he tried to outrun the cab driver. Cops were quickly involved and they didn't have trouble finding and catching him. The funny thing is, he tried to lie to the cops at first, saying that he wasn't in the cab, and he also refused to give his name. But one of the cops recognized him and knew who he was. And then, after all that, he still resisted arrest anyways. For a kid whose parents are rich, skipping out on a cheap taxi fare just to get arrested is a dumb move. So what's the most likely reason Harry did it? The answer could be what he had on him when the cops finally arrested him. Yep, a big bag of fine white powder that's certainly not flour. While Harry did get in trouble for this, his family connections got him out of the worst of it. Number 3. Clara Kraber and friends. When rich kids riot, they do it big. Clara Kraber and her crew of young Manhattan socialites made headlines back in September of 2020 when they caused roughly $100,000 worth of damage during protests. Clara and her privileged rich friends smashed windows, lit trash cans on fire, and graffitied buildings in their rampage through the Flatiron District in Manhattan. They were the children of some of Manhattan's most prominent and richest families. Destroying buildings to protest inequality may not make the most sense for them to do. Clara became the poster child of privilege after people discovered just how wealthy her family was. They recently just bought a nearly $2 million home on the Upper East Side in 2016. Clara was spending time between that house and another expensive second home her family has in Connecticut whenever she wasn't at Rice University. That's a private college in Houston, Texas, where tuition costs $50,000 a year. Unlike other protesters that didn't have parents with deep pockets, Kraber got off for her part in the vandalism. Prosecutors simply dropped the charges against her. Why? An assistant DA at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office said that they couldn't determine that she was guilty of felony charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Did the protesters' strategy of using umbrellas to hide identities work, or was it because of her parents' ability to pay for a first-rate lawyer? The real question is, why do a lot of kids with privilege show their support on social media at whatever social justice movement that's popular at the moment? Is it actually because they truly care about the cause, or is it just one way for them to feel better about themselves through virtue signaling? Number 2. Aleem Iqbal. When someone calls themselves Lord, you already know their personality. Aleem Iqbal calls himself Lord Aleem on Instagram, where he shows off cars from his dad's supercar rental business. But he also has a history of crashing his dad's exotic cars and also having road rage. In May of 2018, Aleem crashed his Mercedes G-Class into several parked cars, and a fight started when the owners of the cars and Aleem pulled over at a nearby gas station. Aleem may or may not have been hurt in the confrontation. Someone at the scene supposedly had a hammer, and the windows were shattered on the G-Wagon Aleem was driving. He did check himself into the hospital, but it may have been from the crash though. Aleem definitely is used to strange things happening related to cars. He had his license suspended for a year after he was convicted for speeding in his dad's Rolls-Royce Wraith. Then there was the time one of his rental customers crashed his dad's Ferrari 458 Spider into a wall. Then there were the mysterious fires that happened over a period of 5 weeks to 4 different cars in his dad's fleet. Aleem also has no problem letting other people know how rich his family is. In 2016, he was filmed on video telling police officers that his shoes cost more than what they make in a year, just because he was pulled over. Number 1. Wang Xisong. Apple Watch editions easily qualify as luxury items. After all, each watch costs an average of $14,000. Meet Wang Xisong, the heir of China's Dailan Wanda Group and the son of one of the richest men in China. Wang has no problem showing off his family's wealth. His social media accounts are filled with photos showing off luxury items, but his dog's social media pics probably take the cake. Wang's dog, Wang Kiki of course, has his own social media account, and Wang bought his dog not 1, but 2 gold Apple Watches, 1 for each front paw. Predictably, Wang's bragging made Chinese internet users completely mad. This is predictable in a country where the average yearly income is still well under $9,000 a year. Here's what's next.